Have you ever felt lost even though thinking seems to happen all the time? Not confused in a loud or chaotic way, but quietly unsure, as if a lot of reflection is happening without it turning into direction. Well, yes, you plan and imagine the possibilities. Play the outcomes in your mind, yet nothing quite settles into something that feels like a next step. And at the same time, there always seems to be someone else moving forward. They just change jobs, start projects, make decisions without appearing nearly as thoughtful. This video is about that gap. Not to solve it, and not to judge either side of it, but to make sense of why this pattern shows up so often. It often happens that people who think a lot assume thinking should eventually produce clarity. The logic feels natural. If enough angles are considered, if enough information is gathered, then at some point the picture should come into focus, right? But in practice, thinking doesn't always work like that. Sometimes it just keeps expanding sideways instead of moving forward. In everyday life, this can look very ordinary. Someone might spend weeks researching possible career paths, reading about industries, comparing roles, imagining what daily life would feel like in each option. The thinking is real. The effort is real. Yet when it comes time to choose, everything still feels uncertain. Yes, each option has an upside, but also each option has a risk too. So nothing feels clearly right. Meanwhile, someone else might take a job that doesn't fully make sense on paper. The pay isn't perfect. The role isn't ideal. But once inside it, something starts happening. New information shows up. New people enter the picture. Preferences sharpen. Even dissatisfaction becomes useful because it reacts against something concrete. What's interesting is that the difference here isn't intelligence, depth, or seriousness. It's the type of feedback being received. Action-oriented people tend to get feedback simply by moving. Not because their choices are better, but because the world responds to movement. Even failure produces information. That feedback, whether positive or negative, creates a sense of motion, and motion often gets mistaken for certainty. Thinking-oriented people, on the other hand, often work with internal feedback. Ideas respond to other ideas. Scenarios branch into more scenarios. Doubts generate new doubts. This kind of exploration can be rich and complex, but it can also stay self-contained. Nothing pushes back. Nothing interrupts the loop. Over time, that can start to feel like being stuck, even though a lot is happening internally. This shows up in learning too. Some people read endlessly before starting. They want the full map before taking a step. Others begin with partial understanding and let experience fill in the gaps. The second group often looks more confident, but that confidence is sometimes just familiarity gained through exposure. The first group may actually understand more in theory, yet feel less grounded, because nothing has been tested. It's not that thinking turns into overthinking at a specific moment. It's more subtle than that. It happens when reflection stops connecting to anything outside itself. When questions don't lead to experiments, even small ones, they tend to multiply instead of resolve. Careers are a common place where this tension becomes visible. Someone might feel restless for years, sensing that something is off, analyzing values, imagining alternative lives, questioning long-term direction. Another person might pivot quickly, not because of clarity, but because discomfort becomes intolerable. One path feels heavier, the other feels reckless, and neither label quite captures what's actually happening. In relationships, a similar pattern appears. Some people analyze dynamics deeply, replay conversations, consider intentions, wonder about meaning. Others speak up, change behavior, or leave. The latter group often looks decisive, even when they're just reacting. The former group often looks uncertain, even when they're perceptive. The world tends to reward visible action with responses. Their messages get answered. Doors open or close. There is some sort of progress going on. That visibility creates a sense of being on track, even if the internal picture is still messy. Thinking, by contrast, is mostly invisible. There's no obvious signal that it's working, even when it is. This is where the feeling of being lost can creep in. Well, it's not like nothing is happening, more like nothing is confirming that anything is happening. Exploration can happen in different ways. Some people explore by imagining. Others explore by doing. Both are real forms of engagement with uncertainty. Problems arise when someone stays in only one mode for too long, especially in a world that responds unevenly to each. Thinking-heavy people can start to feel as if they're falling behind, not because they are, but because their progress doesn't register externally. Action-heavy people can start to feel ahead, even when their understanding is shallow, because the world keeps giving them signals. Neither side has a monopoly on clarity. What's often missed is that direction doesn't always come from insight first. Sometimes it emerges after contact, after friction, after something pushes back. Thinking prepares the ground, but it doesn't always plant the seed. At the same time, acting without reflection can create motion without meaning. It can look like confidence while quietly accumulating confusion. That's why this isn't a story about one type being better than the other. It's a story about mismatched expectations. When someone expects thinking to deliver certainty and it doesn't, the result can feel like failure. When someone expects action to deliver answers and it does, it can feel like proof of correctness. But both expectations are incomplete. Some people are internally rich and externally stalled. Others are externally busy and internally vague. The contrast is easy to misread. So when a thoughtful person feels directionless, it doesn't necessarily mean something is missing. It may simply mean that their way of engaging with uncertainty doesn't produce fast feedback. And when someone else seems to be moving forward with ease, it doesn't necessarily mean they know more. It may just mean they're learning in public. Seen this way, feeling lost starts to look less like a personal flaw and more like a side effect of how different people interact with the world. Not everyone navigates uncertainty the same way. Not everyone receives confirmation in the same form. And sometimes, what looks like being behind is really just being somewhere quieter, where progress isn't obvious yet, even to the person experiencing it.